but I think this is about 60 to 65%. But in doing the research for this stuff, right, I was reading about melanin, and I'm like, okay, it had brought a question in my head. I don't have the complete answer. Of course, the first humans had melanin, right? But when I was reading more about it, I'm like, okay, as far as the processes of it, okay, you get the ultraviolet rays from the sun. It penetrates all the layers of the sky, hits your skin. That's when it develops what is called. Oh, I thought my phone cut off. It develops what is called cholecalciferol, which is useless by itself. That later becomes vitamin D once it absorbs into your skin. Then its receptors grasps to the blood, to the proteins in the blood, and as it flows through the blood, it goes to the body, but it goes through the liver and then the kidneys. Once it goes through the liver and it goes through further mutation, its code name is what is it? 25 hydroxy cholecalciferol. Then after the liver process, as it continues, it goes through your kidneys, and then further mutation happens, and then this code name to describe this mutation with these added ingredients is 125 dehydroxycholecalciferol. All right, so that's what happens, but this is also described as the process of oxidation. That is what fucking interested me, which means what? It is different from an organic process starting from a fucking fetus, for example. But it's like an intrinsic process at the same time. Now, what am I saying? Okay, a baby, for example, majority of black babies, when they come out, what happens? A lot of them, as far as their skin complexion, they end up becoming darker. Why? Because they get those sudden bursts of exposure to the sun. So their skin also goes through an oxidation process, because when violet rays hit your skin, it damages your skin, the DNA in your skin. So that activates your melanocytes. Now, this is going to make sense. I'm just trying to explain this as logically as I can. It's a lot. It activates your melanocytes or whatnot. Now, that is located, or basically it comes from your gene responsible for melanin, which is called melanocortin receptor 1. That is located on chromosome 20 in human beings, right? Now, that's the thing. Follow me. I'm trying to make this quick so my phone don't cut off. I'm surprised it's at 31 minutes. That's the thing. That this part that I'm about to describe is different from oxidation of melanin. Basically, I'm leading toward the question of when did fucking melanin first hit human skin? But I'm going to describe this as I'm going. Okay. As a young fetus developing in a woman's belly, the first layer of skin, the outer shell, it is called embryonic ectodermis. All right? This is what's interesting about this, as far as people of color in general, not being racial, by the way. That also consists of melanin, and that portion later on develops and becomes 90% of your fucking skin layer. Now, as far as like this embryonic ectodermis, you got the mesodermis, which is the middle layer, and then you got the epidermis. I believe the epidermis, right? But still, as far as like the keratinocytes, which makes up the majority of your skin, that's that fucking 90. That's the ectodermis as the start. But it's weird because like when ultraviolet rays hit your skin or whatnot, and it damages your DNA, basically damages your skin cells or whatnot. This is when melanin basically regenerates itself, and these melanin receptors or but really not receptors. They're not receptors or whatever. They just they basically like they exist within melanin cells in liquidy form. It's called melanosomes. They get activated to interact with the keratinocyte cells, which is your skin cells, and they replace it. So when I talk about like a baby, when you think about black babies or darker skinned babies, when they come home and eventually become dark, that's because when they get exposure to the sun, they go through the oxidation process. So it's replaced. But see, there's a distinction between the two, and the ectodermis represents the more organic form, I would say. The oxidation is more the later form, but it's still intrinsic due to evolution. Here's the thing. When I was reading about this, I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay, shit. I mean, I'm just asking a question. Like, when did, like, okay, more, let me say this right now. It is a scientific fact that, you know what I'm saying, the first people, human beings, were people of color. My only thing is, at what point in the evolutionary line did, you know, skin begin to exhibit melanin? Now, it was something on Wikipedia that did sort of answer the question, but not really. They were like, about a million years ago is when pigment came into being, or melanin being expressed in humans. And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about it. So I'm thinking about the other stuff that I read about it as far as doing the research for this. And then my next blog that I'm thinking about doing, I'm like, okay, I'm reading about the bonobo apes and chimpanzees and howler monkeys and gorillas and all this type of stuff, right? Now, as far as like the evolutionary line that I know about, okay, you got the Australopithecus africanus, Australopithecus afarensis, you got the Homo habilis, and excuse me for putting the phone on the side of my mouth. But you got the Homo habilis, you got the Homo erectus / Homo ergaster, then you got Homo heidelbergensis, then you got Neanderthals, and then you got Neanderthals, of course, they were in the Middle East as well, in Europe mainly, but the Middle East as well. Then after them, you got Homo heidelbergensis, right? Oh, damn, I'm tripping. No, I'm tripping. Wait. Yeah, you still got the Homo heidelbergensis, which also branched off into Homo sapiens, early Homo sapiens, over 100,000 years ago. Okay, but as far as like the split between, you could say chimpanzees, but there is a distinction today based on what I read as far as bonobo apes and chimpanzees, because their line split about almost a million years ago, between 890 and 860,000 years ago. But as far as human beings and us splitting from them, that was about 4 million years ago. So I'm like, okay. And reading about the bonobo apes, I'm like, let me check out their features, like not just their features, but like the melanin. So I'm reading about the melanin of different animals, right? I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, okay, as far as like the bonobos ape, they look black, right? That's just the fur. Underneath that, they have a white pale complexion. So I'm like, okay, damn. So as I'm going typing and all kind of shit, I can't find nothing specific. So I just started thinking about it. I'm like, what about the gene expression of melanin in animals, period? Now, as far as like melanin, you got like 3 different types that are expressed in human beings. You got eumelanin, which is the black to like brown color, the dark black to brown color. And then you got pheomelanin, which is kind of like reddish to yellow color. And then you got neuromelanin. And that's just basically the coloring of the inner portions of your fucking brain. I mean, not just your brain, but like your, I think near the brain stem, something like that. But as far as the first 2, those are the main the main ones that I was thinking about when I was trying to figure this out. Now, reading about this, I knew about the gene on chromosome 16, actually. Chromosome 16 that's responsible for melanin production in human beings. And I knew about its multi-functions, basically. Like, it wasn't just responsible for color. I understood that. The color, the pupils, the inner portions of your ear, all kind of stuff, right? Cartilage in your face, your hair color, hair texture. I knew about this, but I didn't know about this other gene that was called that is called a Agouti, Agouti. Now I'm reading about this gene, right? Now they're talking about other animals that has this gene, right? That's how it starts off when I was looking this up on Wikipedia. So like you got I think it's called anyway, you got certain horses, for example. I almost called the name of this particular horse, but it's like a brown horse, but it has black legs. And this horse, as well as other animals who exhibit different colors around their body, they possess a gene called a Agouti gene, and a gene or whatnot. Also, I think certain chimpanzees also, but I know for sure like certain horses or whatnot, there's a Agouti gene. Now, in human beings, the Agouti gene exists on chromosome 20. Now, this gene, now this is what I didn't know. I'm thinking like, okay, as far as pheomelanin, that also exists on chromosome 16, but I was thinking like that'd just be like a L. You know what I mean? I didn't know it would be like a whole different gene, and that humans would also have that gene, and that gene in humans is also responsible for pheomelanin. Of course, both of those genes interact or communicate with each other's, thus one gets expressed. So I was like, wow. So I thought about animals. I'm like, okay, so if we come from bonobo apes as human beings, and you look at their complexion today, they have a white, like a more of a pale complexion underneath their skin. I wouldn't think I don't know that. I'm just thinking like, okay, basically like an animal, like the Agouti gene in human beings, for example, could also be expressed, and it is expressed for certain people that got like reddish color hair, but also freckles and stuff like that. You got little mutations and things like that happen as well. But I don't know. It's hard to explain it, but I got enough through. I'm gonna leave that open. Basically, my question is this: at what point in human history did melanin develop? Of course, I am of the belief that the first human beings were black, but I still find it interesting as far as the successive mutative stages toward that. In other words, like an animal can have that expression as a gene, which they do, but at what point did it mutate to develop into going from like colored fur to the actual skin of the entire body being this color? That's what I want to freaking know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand like you can't get the recessive from the dominant. I understand that, but as far as like the mutation of the Agouti gene and the well, I would say just mutation, but because animals also possess the gene for melanin, for black, thus brown melanin as well. But at what point during this interaction between both genes throughout the different lineages and stages of the development and the evolution of the human being, at least going to, I wonder, like, at least to Homo heidelbergenses, like about them, like, what was their skin type and complexion as well? What color was it? You know what I'm saying? At what point, if it goes even further beyond that? And I'm talking about because I would say that it should be obvious that like the texture and thickness of human skin is obviously different from apes, especially the fact that they are much stronger. I don't know. I just find that interesting. That's one question. The last thing I'm going to say real quick, which I was saying like may kind of like, some people might find it like, okay, I could think about that. This whole thing about interdimensions or different dimensions. Now, this is what I will say. That's a scary thing if it actually